Okay, good evening, everybody. Good afternoon, depending on where you are watching from. I'll be taking you guys on how to connect to the database PHP using core PHP. So it's not using Laravel, it's not using object oriented core PHP. So procedural PHP. So I will proceed to share my screen and show you guys how to connect to the database. Okay. Really hope you can see my screen right now. Okay. Okay. And here we are. I already written it, so I will delete it. And I will also delete the file so you understand where I'm coming from and how I got to wherever it is I will be. So now we create a new file inside the DB folder. If you are new to PHP, before you could get to this step, the first thing you're supposed to do is to install XAMPP on your system. Get it started on your system. You could get most of the videos. I will also do a video on that, on how to install your XAMPP and get it started on your system. And if you want to know if it is started, you go to your browser, type localhost, and it will display some phpMyAdmin and some other things. That means it has started. Then after that, go locate your XAMPP in your locate your htdocs folder. Then inside the htdocs folder, create a folder. Open your VS Code and open that folder by clicking on this file here and choosing open folder. So when you open that folder here, the next thing you're going to do is to proceed to creating a file or folder that you want to work with. So now in my own case, I want to have a folder called DB. Then inside that DB, I will have to create a file called connection.php. So now let's proceed to creating a folder here and I call it DB. Now I have a folder called DB. So I want to create another file inside this folder called DB. Do you get? So the file will be called connection.php because if there's something called naming convention, we are actually working towards connection to the database. So our file name should also replicate what we are doing, right? So we should give it connection.php. I hope you can see my system very well on my screen. So then we proceed. As you already know, the coding sectors in PHP is that number one, every of your file must have an extension PHP. And then after that, before you could write any code or any PHP code in any of your file, it should start with the PHP tag, which is dollar, which is greater than dollar sign PHP. Then you enter. It's not necessarily a must you have to close the tag, but if you know at the end of it or whatever you are going to be writing any other code or language or like HTML, it's advisable you close it up. So in my case, I will not be closing it up. Now let's proceed. So the first thing we have to do now is to know our host name, our username, our password, and the database we want to connect to, right? So we move over to our browser, locate our phpMyAdmin. By default, if you have your XAMPP installed, if you type localhost, if you have your XAMPP installed, the moment you type localhost, this is where it brings you to. This is a way to know that yes, you have installed local. I'm using Mac actually. You have installed localhost on your system. That's why you are seeing this OS because I'm using Mac. And the version of the example I installed is 8.2.4. I don't know when you're watching or the current version you installed is still okay. So now that I have my localhost installed, I can easily access to my PHP, my admin, which is what every developer that is coding with PHP uses, right? So You can see here there's Apache Fence Facts, how to guys, PHP Info, and PHP My Admin, which is the actual database, actual host or server, you can call it anything. When I click on it, it brings me to this place, right? So now I have these a list of databases I have already created. So the database we are going to be using is called Form. You can see it here. Just for people that are not familiar with this, if you want to create a database, as you come into this interface, look at left hand side where my cursor is. There is new there. When you click on new, you see where it brings you to. Now there is a place set database name and all of this. You can click on create. So you can type a database name. Let's say you give it a name class, PHP class. Once you click on create, it will automatically create for you and you can connect to it, right? So now for the server name, if you come to this place, look at the top where my cursor is. Look at the top. There is server and there is what we call local host. So the name of this phmyadmin, the host name is what we call local host. So now that you've seen this, let's go back to our code. Here, we have to, for us to connect to the database, you have to first of all create a variable. I don't know if you've gotten to this extent in PHP, how to create a variable. How to create a variable in PHP is like using a dollar sign and give it any name you want, assign it to the value you want it to hold on to, and you are done. So now we are going to create a variable called host name. And as I just told you and showed you, our host name is what? Localhost. So you call it localhost, right? Then you come down to this place. The next thing we are going to need apart from our host name is our username and this password that will lead us to this PHP my admin. So now what is our username? Our PHP my admin username. Let's first of all create a variable. Now our by default for every other persons including you that is watching right now, your username is root by default, except there's a reason or in situations that you changed it is root. Then after that, the next thing we are going to create is the password. We have to get our password right. So variable password. Now what are we going to assign our password? You are curious to know, right? By default our phmyadmin is empty. Our phmyadmin password is empty for everybody, including you, except you change it for some reasons I do not know. Now if you connect your database using only this, you will connect quite alright. It will just bring you to here. Now if you have a situation whereby you want to save something into the database, now there's many databases here, right? I want to save something in this database. I did not specify the database here, so it will not work. It gives me an error because it can't find the database I want it, because each database does what? Has a table. So for me to insert, I have to insert in a particular table. So if I just say insert in so table, it doesn't even know the database I want it to insert, to talk more of looking for the table to insert into, right? So the best way to do that is specifying the database you want it to locate. So whenever we write a query, it goes into that database, and then look for that table for us and be able to insert into it the way we wrote our query. So we have to get our database. And in my case, my database is what? Form. That's what I'm using, right? So that's what I'm using. Now, after we must have specified all of these variables, that's what we want, we are done. Now, how do we connect to the database? The first thing, you create a variable. You call it con or connection based on your choice. Then we proceed. So there is this thing, there is a built-in function in PHP, a lot of them. And there is one of them that is used for connecting from your PHP VS Code to your PHP admin, which is MySQLi. The I is because it has been improved. Before you normally use MySQL, but if you use it now, you get an error. So you have to put the I, which means improved. Underscore connect. This is a function that you use to connect to the database. And this function expects to get the host name, the username, the password, and the database specifically, respectively, without mixing it up. If you put database before host name, you get an error. So you'll be wondering why I'm getting my code already filled up. It's because I have an extension called as I'm seeing this right now. If I click on tab, it fills up for me. This is because I have an extension called tab 9. If you want to get it on yours, you can just come over to this side. You see extensions, right? You click on it. You could just type tab 9, right? Sorry, tab 9. You can see it's here. It even needs I need to reload it, so you can easily install yours and sign in with your Google account or whatever, and you automatically be getting all of this. So now that I have connected this, I don't even know if it's working or not, right? I have to do something to know if it's working. And in PHP, there's something called if condition. So now, for me to do that, I have to write an if condition to check if this actually worked, like if it's actually connected, right? If I check it, I bring I echo out a message. If not, I echo also a message it will be based on my responses or what I get, right? So I write if con that is if connection, if it actually connected. Now I am expected to echo. Remember that in PHP, if you want to echo something out in the database, you make use of echo in PHP. If you want to display something in the database, make use of echo in PHP. Now this is basically how if condition works. You use it to check if a particular condition is met. You echo out a message. If it's not, you bring out a message as well. So X, if it actually connected, give me display a message connection established. If not, echo connection what failed. You get that, right? So now that you've done this, you can as well pause this video to get all of this on your system, test it and know if it works. So let's test mine and confirm if it's working. Okay, I already opened it here. Now we're going to, you see, it's working. So if I say, let's assume I say if it is connected, just echo establish. When I refresh, I get established because it is actually connected. So now this is basically how to connect um to your phmadmin database from your VS Code. Now, in any case you want to write a code that with if you want to write a code that will be inserting something into the database, just like querying the database, inserting, updating, deleting the database. In every of your file, you must include this database. Once you include it, if there's any way you're trying to query the database, you make use of this call. I won't go deep in details about it, but just know that every of your file that you need to insert or query the database, you have to include this file in order for you to make use of this variable call. And how I include it, that this is already a PHP function, include once. And you're wondering why I say db/connection.php. This is the name of your file. If the name of your folder where the connection.php is in is not db, maybe it's something else, that is still what you're going to write here. Slash the name of that file where you wrote your connection.php. So I hope you understand this, and I hope I'm able to teach you how to connect your phmadmin database using core PHP. Follow me for more and more tutorial, right? So I'm going to be constantly posting videos, going live and all of that. I will teach on PHP. I think this is my first lecture on PHP, and I started with connection to database, right? Because I think many people, I hope I was able to teach you right and guide you right. So please follow me for more videos. And if you need any lesson you want me to do you guys on, or kind of do a video on a particular topic, drop it in the comment section. I'll be sure to attend to it. Thank you.